Hello, everyone. This is Professor Sexton with a video lecture on using quotations. This document can be found in course documents. So what you'll want to do is go to course documents and look at the using quotation documents. And what I'm going to do in this video lecture, I'm just going to go over that document for you. So when you look at it yourself, you'll know some of the things to point out or some of the things to pay attention to. So let me share the document with you now. So here we go. So first of all, let me say this. For the first few papers that you've done in the course, using quotations weren't absolutely necessary because those papers were very personal in nature, and so they were about your own experiences. If you wanted to use quotations, you could have, but you didn't have to. But for the next paper assignment, paper assignment number 3, you'll have to use quotations. And so what this document does is it helps explain that use. Also, for English 102, and the information about using quotations, this is still going to be relevant for you there. So it's still good to know this information. So let me begin by going over the document. Using quotations is an effective way to make your essay stronger. You, however, want to avoid quoting unnecessarily. So to that end, you don't want to quote matter-of-fact details. A general rule of thumb that I follow myself is I only quote parts of a source essay or literary work if it's going to enhance my argument, or if those parts are where a paraphrase of those parts do not accurately reflect the strength of the original. But the thing that you should always remember with quotations, they are used to enhance your argument, not be a substitute for your argument. So you always want to make the quotations in service to what it is that you're trying to prove and argue in your essay. There are 2 formats for using quotations, and for variety, you should use both in essays. So the first one is to introduce into your own. I don't know why my computer always does this, where it. So here we go again. The first thing that you want to do, one option is to introduce into your own sentence. So look here. This is the example that I give. Fast food jobs leave, open quotes, no room for initiative, creativity, or even elementary rearrangement, end quotes. So what I've done here is I've brought the quotation into my own sentence. The fast food jobs leave is my own sentence. This part in quotation marks is from the source essay. Notice that how when I combine the part from the source essay and my part, that they read grammatically correct together. So it's not jarring in between the two. The next thing I need to point out too is parenthetical citations. So parenthetical citations, what they do is they tell your reader where you got this information from. For MLA documentation and what you'll be doing in English courses, for essays, what you'll need to do is give the last name of the author and then the page number after the quotation. So see here, that's the author's last name, page number, close quotation. Ending punctuation comes after the citation. Notice that there is no comma there between the last name and the page number. Another way to incorporate a quotation into your own sentence is into your paper is to have a complete sentence before the quotation. So for here, if you have Gawanda explains that there is one aspect that both sides can agree on when it comes to health insurance. This is a complete sentence. And because this is a complete sentence, I put a colon after the complete sentence. Then I give the quotation, which is what we agree on broadly is that the rules should apply to everyone. Let me also bring up some other points here. Whenever you introduce a quotation, you want to make sure that that introduction to the quotation tells your reader why you're using this quotation. How is it serving your essay? How is it serving your point? So you see here where I give an explanation of what this quotation is going to do. So by the time you get to the quotation, you understand. Also keep in mind, my part of the sentence is first. So my part is primary, the quotation is secondary. So you always want to do that. You always want to put your point first and then use the quotation to support what you're stating. You will notice here that the citation is different. So remember in the earlier one, we have the author's last name, and here we only have the page number. The reason is because in my introductory sentence, I give the author's last name. So since I have the author's last name here, I don't need it in the citation. So that is one of the things that you want to be careful with when it comes to doing parenthetical citation. If you use the author's last name in your introductory sentence, then the parenthetical citation is only the page number. If you don't use the author's last name in your introductory sentence, then you want to include that author's last name in your parenthetical citation. Occasionally, there might be circumstances where you will want to quote 4 lines or more. And if you do 4 lines or more, you want to use block format. However, let me caution you here. Why it is good to use quotations in your essays. You do not want to overquote. So keep in mind that when you are using quotations, they have to serve a purpose. So don't just quote unnecessary information, background information that's not important to your argument. Only quote those that are specific to the argument that you're making. There shouldn't be that many times where you would quote 4 lines or more. However, if in your essay there's a part of the source essay where there are 4 lines or more that are very important to the argument that you're making, and you're going to reference everything in those 4 lines, then what you do is use a block format. Block format is slightly different. So with block format, what you do is you end your introductory on 1 line, and then you begin the quotation. So this is the quotation, and we continue to the next page. The quotation continues. Also notice that with block format, quotation marks are not around the quotation. So when you do block format, you do not need to put the quotation marks around the quotation, but then the citation is the same. So those are the 2 ways. Read over them carefully because this is a difficult concept to grasp, and the more practice you have with it, the better. A few other things that I want to add about using quotations. The tag is the word that tells your reader what you think the quotation is doing. So notice in the examples above, the tags were lead and explain. But what you want to do is you want to vary the tags that you use. I mean, more often than not, we'll set states, but you don't want to set states over and over and over and over again. So you want to use different words besides states. So other words that you can use are acknowledges, asserts, presents, replies, suggests, explains, responds, notes, develops, continues. However, be careful. Make sure that you're using the tag for what the quotation is doing. Like, for instance, if the quotation is not a response to something else, then you don't want to use response. Or if the quotation is not exploring, then you don't want to use exploring. But then again, if it is reasoning or if it questions something, then you may want to make sure that you're using the appropriate tag. Also, keep in mind that when you're using quotations, you're using the present tense. This is a difficult concept for a lot of people to grasp because so often than not, when we're writing essays, we tend to use the past tense, but when you're citing, you want to use the present tense. So notice acknowledges, asserts, declares, questions, notes, explores. So you want to make sure that you do that. Last 2 things about quotations. Occasionally, you might need to delete or add a word to a quotation for it to fit grammatically, and that is totally fine. If you want to delete a word from a quotation and to show that, what you do is you use ellipses. Ellipses are just 3 periods with a space between them. So for instance, if you look at this example, Freud defines resistance as, quote, the force, ellipses, retaining the pathological condition, end quote. Those 3 ellipses let the reader know that there were words in the original citation that have been left out here. So you take them out here. Also notice too with the parenthetical citation, I just give the number, page number 5, because the author's last name is in my sentence. Likewise, sometimes you need to add words. If you need to add words, then you enclose those added words into brackets, and that lets your reader know that you've added words. So for instance, if you look at this example, he, quote, said about working with brackets, patients in their normal state, end quote. So in the original, patients is not there, but for clarification, because I'm taking that quotation out of a larger framework, I put that there so that when my readers are reading the essay, they understand that. And that lets the reader know that that's not part of the original or source. But look at the citation here. This citation, you have the author's last name and page number. So that's using quotations. I try to keep this document as short as possible, so it wouldn't be too much to take on. I do want to make a note of saying this, that when you get to English 102, even though what I just showed you here is still going to be valid for short stories, novels, and essays, if your English 102 professor has you reading essays, but for poetry, there's a different way to cite. I'm not going to go over that in this lesson because it's not something that we'll need to do in 101, but your 102 professor should cover how to cite lines from poetry. And also, if you do plays in English 102, depending on the type of play, that is also going to be different. But once again, your English 102 professor should go over that in terms of how to cite for poetry and for plays. But for everything else, this is the same. One of the most important takeaways that I want you to take away from this, in addition to the 2 ways of incorporating quotations in the citations, just the use of quotations to make your argument stronger. And keep in mind, I cannot emphasize this enough, the quotations are used to enhance your argument, not be a substitution for your argument. Because at the end of the day, what we want is, we want to hear your voice first, and then the quotation is used to kind of support, illustrate what you have already said. There will be a quiz on using quotations that goes over this, so it gives you that opportunity to practice on how to do this. That you find this video lecture useful. If you have any questions about using quotations or need any clarification, please feel free to email me. Take care, everyone. Bye.